Hello guys, my name is Joseph Scalise. This is the Noble Gwent tree and welcome to Gwent. So this is the video just to help you guys kind of get into the game and get an
You
idea
shall die
of what it
world.
is. And we're just going to play through a game here and kind of look over it. So we are playing with a monsters deck. Monsters are one of the 5 factions in Gwent. Now to start off the game, you're going to get 11 cards here and you're going to be able to mulligan or put back 3 of them. Now we don't have to go too hard through the mulligan. That'll be for other guides and other videos, but basically I'm going to get rid of these frosts because I have cards that pull them out of my deck. These Wild Hunt Hounds, and I don't need them. And then if I want to get rid of anything else, I probably want to get rid of one of these. So this is my opening hand. You have 11 cards, and a card, there are 3 types of cards. There are bronze units, which have that bronze border, silver units, and then gold units, and they all do different things. These are the 3 rows you can play a card into: the melee row, the ranged row, and the siege row. And when you go on your turn, and it is our turn, you get to play 1 card from your hand onto the board. So in this case, we're going to play a Wild Hunt Hound, and what it does is it summons a Biting Frost. So let's look at that. So we'll put it down. Notice the sword, so it has to go in the melee row. And Biting Frost is a special. So units go onto the board, specials, you can think of them as spells, and this puts Frost onto a row, and so we will put that wherever we want. Now, I know my opponent is a monsters deck. They usually like to put things in the front row, so I'm going to put Frost here. And so what this Frost does is at the start of every turn, whatever units my opponent has in this row will take 1 damage. They will lose 1 point of strength, basically. And notice the strength total. So our strength is 5. Our opponent's strength is now 10. So he is now winning the round. He played a frost giant, or an ice giant rather. It is a 5 strength minion, but if frost is on the board, which it is, it gets boosted to 10. And because we want this giant to take some damage, we need to get it into frost, and so we will play another hound here, get another frost from our deck, and we will hit the giant with it. And now that he is in frost, he takes 1 damage at the start of the turn. So our opponent is going to play frost on us, which is going to hurt our hounds here. Now we have some options, and we can play First Light, which is a card that clears frost off our side of the board to get rid of this. We can play more units onto the board to try to hurt our opponent. Our opponent doesn't really have too much going on. He's only ahead by 6 points. So we're probably just going to play a Wild Hunt Rider. When we put this card down, I want to put it in the back row. We don't want to put it into the frost. And now we are going to be ahead because he's going to take 2 damage from the frost, putting him down to 12. Now, the Wild Hunt Rider is kind of a unique card. So this is a unique interaction. The Wild Hunt Rider has an ability where if you lose the round while you have it out, it basically stays around for the next round, which is really good. But our opponent just locked it, and what that means is that he got rid of its ability. So when you lock a card, it no longer has that effect. So even if we lose the round, this will not stay on the board anymore. It will just go to the graveyard, like every other card. So we have a pretty weird turn here. There's not really that much we can do. We're going to play Nithral. So Nithral is a 4 strength unit with 3 armor, and armor is basically extra strength that just doesn't count to your point total. So he has 7 strength, or 7 total, 4 strength, 3 armor, and he makes frost do 2 damage. So our opponent is going to take 6 damage now instead of 3. And we are also going to take 4 damage on these instead of the normal 2, but that's okay because our opponent is losing more strength each turn than we are, and we are still in control of the game. So 16 here, 12 here. Next turn, we are probably going to play this card, the Wild Hunt Warrior, so it's 5 strength. Okay, so what our opponent just did, this is kind of interesting. So our opponent passed, and when you pass, you basically give up the round, or you get out of the round, and then you basically tell your opponent. So we can pass back if we want to, and we will tie. And if we tie here, we go into the next round basically down a card. We'll be at 7 cards, he'll be at 8. And that gives him the advantage. So I don't think we want to do that. I think we'd rather play a card here to win the round. So we'll play the Wild Hunt. We're actually going to hold off on, well, for the purposes of this video, we will play the Wild Hunt Warrior, which does 3 damage to any enemy unit, and if it dies, it gets boosted that by 2, which means it goes up by 2. So we took the round. We're down 2 cards, which is usually not very good, because we now have a disadvantage going into round 2. So we got another Wild Hunt Warrior, and so at the start of round 2 and the start of round 3, you get the option to mulligan another card. We don't really want these navigators, so we'll get rid of one of them. Now we have 2 options here in terms of what we can do. We can play this round out and try to get a bunch of cards out of our opponent's hand, or alternatively, we can simply just pass right now and make our opponent play a card. But you notice, because he's at 10 cards and we're at 8, we don't want to just pass right away, because he'll play a weak card and he'll win the round, and then he'll be at 9, or he'll be at 10 again, and we'll be at 9, and then he'll have card advantage in the last round. So rather, we're going to play Aridin here. So Aridin is a leader. The way the leaders work is, just think of the leaders as another card that's always in your hand, and you can use it once per game. So we're going to play Aridin. We're going to put him on the middle row. And he summons a bronze Wild Hunt unit, so any of these cards, and we're going to get the Wild Hunt Rider. And we want to put this in the back row. And so this is the card that we had in the first round, where if you lose the round, right, it makes it so... If you lose the round, it makes it so this stays on the board for the last round. So our opponent just played a Fog, which is kind of like a Frost. So there are 3 different weathers in the game, basic weathers in the game: Frost, Rain, and Fog. They all do different things, but Fog damages the highest unit on a row by 2. So our Rider went down to 4, and he also summoned Foglets, which are 2 strength units that get summoned out of the deck or the graveyard whenever Fog is played on the board. So we have a couple options here. It depends how badly we want to stay in this round. And I think because we're down 2 cards, we really want to start pressuring our opponent a little bit. So we're actually going to stay in the round, and we're going to play another Frost on his back row here to hit his Foglets. So we're taking 2 damage at the start of our turn, so we are effectively at 12 points. And our opponent is taking 3 next turn. He's effectively at 7. So he needs to make up a gap of 5 points to stay ahead of us in the point score, which gives him tempo. And that's really important, an important part of Gwent, which will be explained in other videos. So we're going to play the Wild Hunt Warrior. Remember, this does damage by 3. So we could damage the Ancient Foglet to get the most value. But instead of doing that, we're going to kill one of these so we can get the boost. This goes up to 7. He loses those. Okay, so now he cast Frost here. We're going to cast Clear Skies, which is going to clear the board. It also helps us shut down this Foglet, which boosts itself by 1 if there is fog anywhere on the board. And there is no fog on the board right now. So that's pretty good for us. So he's going to play a card.
Just great.
So he played Triss Marigold, which is a gold card. And she is a 7 gold, and her deploy is damage a unit by 5. So we're going to play a Wild Hunt Navigator here.
The mysteries of time and space.
Copy a Wild Hunt Warrior. And we're just going to shoot this one for 3. Just to get another card out of our opponent's hand. And you will notice here that our opponent is going to be up 2 cards. After he plays this card, we're probably going to pass. Okay, so he played Decoy, which brings a card back to your hand and strengthens it by 3. So Strengthen is different than Boost. Boost gives you temporary power. Strengthen gives you base power. And base power makes it so this card is always going to be a 9, even if it goes to the graveyard. Whereas Boost just simply goes away when the card goes to the graveyard. So we're just going to pass the turn. And our opponent is going to pass the turn as well. So this is a really bad situation for us. Notice that we are down 2 cards because we played early into that first round. And we drew Immerlith, which was a good draw. So Immerlith is the starting gold for monsters. And he basically damages an enemy by 4, but if the enemy is under frost, it does 8 damage instead. It's a very powerful swing card. We also have Karen Thier, which moves 5 enemies on the opponent's board into the same row and then puts frost on all of them, which is also very strong. It's going to be really good because our opponent just played Nithral. So we don't have a really strong play right now. We are just going to play the Jotun, which moves 3 enemies to this row on the other side. We'll drag Nithral down, and we do 2 damage to it, which doesn't affect the point totals because it just gets rid of his armor. You will notice that Jotun has 2 arrows here, and that means it is agile. We are actually going to use Immerlith, and agile units can go on any row. We're going to use Immerlith here, and we're just going to kill the Nithral. I don't really want to kill the Nithral, but we have Scorch, which destroys the highest units on the board, so we want to save that for powerful cards like the Arch Griffin. And we will use Karen there and summon Frost. So you'll notice that because we are down 2 cards, we have a big disadvantage. So our last card is Scorch, which destroys the highest units. Now, even if these were higher than the Griffin, it would still kill the Griffin because these are gold, and gold cards do not get affected by other cards. So the Griffin dies, but our opponent has card advantage. So even though we're up 13-0, he gets to play. So he played Geralt, which ties the game, and then he's going to win the game with this card, which is an Emerald. So notice how not having card advantage in that game ended up losing us the game, even though we had more points right before the end of the round. And that is basically the basic overview of a game of Gwent. It's played over 3 rounds. You want to win the most in 2 rounds. You want to win 2 rounds, and that can happen in a bunch of different ways. And that was just to show you the mechanics and kind of give you an idea of how the game works. If you want to see a more in-depth guide and, frankly, a more competitive look at the game, go check out the guides, check out the rest of the site. For now, I'm Joseph Scalise with the Noble Gwentry. Hope you guys enjoy the video, and I hope you guys enjoy Gwent. It's a blast to play. I will see you guys around.